Some deliveries are never meant to arrive. Lately, every headline feels like the same story in a different suit. Private islands, powerful men, sealed rooms, secret gatherings hidden behind money and security. Most people read it, shake their heads, and move on. I used to do the same. I thought those worlds were far away, locked behind gates I'd never touch. Then, UPS put one of those gates on my route. In 2019, I was running night deliveries in Manhattan when my scanner gave me one last stop near Central Park. Signature required, deliver in person. The box was plain, heavy, and wrong. No company name, no return address, just 2 words printed in black: mystery. I kept pushing it to the end of my route. Every time I opened the truck, it was still there, dead center, like it had been waiting on me. By the time I reached that mansion, I wasn't sure I was making a delivery anymore. I was stepping into a ritual. If you think your eyes are open, listen close, because mine were wide shut. I was a UPS driver then, and if you've never done that job in New York, you probably think it's just driving and dropping boxes off. It's not. It's pressure. It's stairs. It's traffic. It's getting buzzed into buildings where nobody looks at you, then blamed when a package gets stolen anyway. It's memorizing doormen's names, learning which offices lie about being open, and knowing exactly how long you can double park before somebody leans on their horn like they're trying to kill you with sound. And that week, I was one mistake away from losing my route. My supervisor, Dale, had already pulled me aside twice that month. Once for a missed business delivery, once because a customer complained I looked irritated when I asked for a signature. "You bring back another signature-required package," he told me that morning, tapping my DIAD like it was a warning ticket. "I don't care what the excuse is. You're done." I remember nodding like I didn't care, but I did. I had rent due in 10 days. My daughter's asthma medicine wasn't cheap. And UPS was the first job I'd had in a long time that actually felt stable. So when I started loading the truck that morning, I was locked in. No mistakes, no returns, no drama. That's when I saw the box. At first, it didn't look like much. Plain brown cardboard, medium size, sealed tight. But it stood out because everything else on my shelf looked normal. Retail labels, barcodes, logos, packing slips. This one looked stripped clean. No branding, no sender, no markings except the shipping label. I picked it up to scan it and felt the weight right away. Too heavy for its size. Not crazy heavy, just dense. Like whatever was inside was compact and solid. The cardboard was cold too. The truck wasn't warm yet, so I told myself that was all it was. I angled the label toward the scanner. To Mr. E, deliver in person, only signature required, Central Park area. Manhattan, high dollar block. My DIAD froze for a second after I scanned it. The screen flickered, and for a split second I saw delivered flash across the top before it corrected itself to out for delivery. I frowned at it. "Scanner acting up?" one of the other drivers asked, passing by my truck with a stack of envelopes. "Yeah," I said. "Probably needs a reboot." He laughed. "Or your package already delivered itself." I laughed too, because what else do you do when somebody says something weird and your stomach drops for no reason? I loaded it onto the middle shelf, right side, behind 2 larger boxes. Then I shut the door and got on with my day. The route started normal. Midtown offices, a dentist, a law firm, 3 apartment buildings in a row where nobody ever answered the bell the first time. The city was its usual mess. Sirens, steam from the grates, tourists standing in the bike lane like they had a death wish. But by my 4th stop, I noticed something. Every time I opened the back of the truck, my eyes went straight to that box. Not, I happened to glance at it. I mean straight to it, like someone was pointing my head. At one stop, I'd stacked a bunch of packages in front of it, and when I came back, the label was visible again. At another, it was sitting dead center on the shelf, facing the door, even though I knew I'd left it turned sideways. I told myself the same thing every time. Bad roads, hard turns, stuff shifts. That's normal. Still, I started checking it without meaning to. quick looks, just to make sure it hadn't torn open or leaked or gotten crushed. It never had. It just sat there, clean and square, like it wasn't riding around Manhattan all day. Around noon, I had a cluster of stops on the Upper East Side, not far from the Central Park address. Logically, that's when I should have knocked out the Mr. E delivery. It was right there. Instead, I skipped it. I told myself I was saving it because signature-required stops can slow you down. You ring, you wait, you get sent to the service entrance, you wait again. Better to clear the quick drops first. That's what I told myself. By 2 o'clock, I was downtown and still hadn't done it. By 4, I was in traffic near a hotel loading zone, sweating under my jacket, and all I could think about was that box sitting in the back like a passenger. Once, while I was in the cab filling out a missed delivery notice, I heard a single thump from behind me. Not a crash, not shifting boxes, just one dull knock. I turned around fast enough to feel stupid for turning around fast. Nothing. Just shelves, cardboard, shadows, and that same brown box where I'd left it. I stared at it longer than I should have. Then I climbed out and kept moving. The city changed after dark. It always does. The noise thins out, and the expensive parts get quieter than they should be. By then, my truck was mostly empty, and the space in the back made everything look farther apart, including the Mr. E box. By 8:30, it was one of only 3 packages left. By 9:15, 2. By 10, it was the only thing in the truck. I stood in the back for a second, with the door open, cold air rolling in off the street, looking at that box sitting by itself on the shelf. No logos, no sender, just that label, Mr. E. I checked my DIID. 1 stop left, Central Park. I could feel Dale's voice in my head. You bring back another signature-required package, you're done. So I grabbed the box. The cardboard was colder now than the night air. I scanned it again, and the screen popped up the stop details with a line I hadn't noticed earlier. Obtain signature. Do not return. I don't know why that made my chest tighten the way it did. It was probably standard language. It probably showed up on 100 packages a day. But standing there, in the back of that truck, with the city noise far away and that box in my hands, it didn't feel like an instruction. It felt like a command. I shut the truck door, got back in the cab, and pulled away from the curb. My last stop was waiting near Central Park. By the time I turned onto the block near Central Park, the city felt different. Not empty. Worse than empty. Controlled. The kind of quiet that doesn't happen by accident in Manhattan. I slowed the truck and checked the address twice. The mansions on that stretch looked like they belonged in another country. Old stone, black iron fences, polished steps, security cameras tucked into corners like they were part of the design. Most of them had doorman, or at least some sign of life. This one didn't. Mr. E's place sat halfway down the block. All pale stone and dark windows, bigger than the others, but somehow harder to look at. No lights in the upper floors, no nameplate, no doorman. Just a long row of windows with the curtains pulled tight, and of course, no parking. There was a hydrant in front, a no standing sign right behind it, and a black sedan idling across the street with its lights off. I circled once, heart beating harder than it should have for a delivery, then found a legal spot half a block down. I sat there for a second with both hands on the wheel. Get the signature. Leave, I said out loud. My voice sounded small in the cab. I grabbed the box and stepped out into the cold. The wind cut through my jacket as soon as I shut the door. Somewhere deeper in the park, I could hear the faint rattle of branches. The streetlights threw long shadows across the sidewalk, and every step toward that mansion made the package feel heavier. Halfway there, I felt a buzz in my hands. I stopped walking. I looked down at the box. No battery label, no electronic sticker, nothing that should have vibrated. A second later, I heard it. Not a real voice, not exactly, but a thought that landed in my head, so clear, It didn't feel like mine. You're late. I froze. Cars passed at the end of the block. A couple laughed somewhere behind me. The city was still there. Normal. Alive. But standing on that sidewalk with that box in my arms, it felt like all of it was happening behind glass. I kept walking. The front steps were wide and spotless. The brass handle on the door gleamed under the entry light. Up close, the place looked less like a house and more like a museum after hours. Beautiful, expensive, and dead. I shifted the box to one arm and rang the bell. No answer. I waited, listening. Nothing. I rang again, longer this time. UPS, I called. Delivery for Mr. E-signature required. Still nothing. I checked my DID like maybe it would save me. It didn't. Same instruction, same stop, same pressure. I should have left a notice and walked away. Instead, I tried the handle. The door opened on the first turn. Warm air rolled out, carrying a smell I couldn't place at first. Something clean and expensive underneath something sweet, like incense burned hours ago. Hello? I called, stepping just inside. UPS, I need a signature. The foyer was huge. Marble floor, tall ceilings, soft lamps glowing against cream-colored walls. No furniture except a narrow table and a mirror. No voices, no footsteps, no TV, nothing. Then I heard it. Faint at first, like sound traveling through pipes. A low, steady chorus of voices somewhere deeper in the house. Not talking, not singing, chanting. I stood there with the box in my hands, staring down a long hallway where the light got dimmer near the end. Then I heard it again, clearer this time, rising from below. And before I could talk myself out of it, I started walking toward the sound, The hallway seemed longer the farther I went. My boots barely made a sound on the polished floor, but every step felt too loud anyway. The chanting got stronger with each one, low voices moving in rhythm, calm and measured, like a prayer recited by people who had done it 100 times before. At the end of the hall was a staircase leading down. Not a basement stair like in a normal house. This was wider, finished in dark stone, with brass railings and soft wall lights that made everything look expensive and wrong at the same time. The air was warmer down there, heavy with that same sweet smell I'd caught at the door, only stronger now. Incense, maybe, mixed with something sharp and chemical underneath it. I should have left, I knew that. Every part of me knew that. But I was still holding the box, still thinking. Stupidly, find a person, get a signature, get out. Halfway down the stairs, I saw the glow. Red light spilled across the lower wall, flickering like candles. The voices rose together, then fell, then rose again. I moved slower, crouching without realizing I was doing it, like the house itself could hear me if I stood up straight. At the bottom, the staircase opened into a wide corridor. Thick curtains hung between stone columns, and beyond one of them, I could see movement, dark figures, slow and deliberate. I slipped behind the nearest curtain and looked through the gap. The room on the other side was huge, bigger than the foyer, bigger than some churches I'd been in. Black marble floor, high ceiling, candles set in iron stands around the edges, a circle carved into the center of the room, polished so smooth it reflected the light. People stood around that circle in rows, dozens of them, everyone dressed in black robes, everyone wearing a mask. Some were gold, some white, some dark and glossy like porcelain. Men and women, I think, but it was hard to tell under the robes. They weren't moving like panicked cult people in a movie. They were still, controlled, waiting. At the front of the circle stood one person in a red robe. The red was deep, almost black at the folds, and the mask he wore was different from the others, longer, sharper, with a shine to it that caught the candlelight. He had something in his hand, like a staff or cane, and every time he spoke, the rest answered in a low voice. It wasn't a scream, it wasn't madness, it was ritual, the sound of people doing something they believed they were allowed to do. My throat went dry. I don't know how long I stayed there. Could have been 10 seconds, could have been a minute, long enough to notice an altar table near the front of the room. long enough to see an empty space on it the exact size of the box in my hands. That's when my stomach dropped. The package. It wasn't just going to the house. It was for this. I shifted my weight to back away. Just one step, slow and quiet. My heel caught the base of something metal behind the curtain. It tipped and hit the floor with a sharp clang. The chanting stopped, not slowly, all at once. The room went so silent I could hear myself breathing. Then every masked head turned toward my side of the curtain at the exact same time. I didn't run. I couldn't. The curtain tore open and two black-robed figures grabbed me before I could even raise my hands. They dragged me into the light, the box still locked in my grip, and pulled me straight into the center of the circle. "I'm UPS," I blurted, voice cracking. "I'm just here to deliver this. I just need a signature and I'll leave. No questions. I swear." The man in the red robe stepped closer. Even through the mask, I could feel him looking at me. Then he spoke, calm as a doctor. "Why do you want to leave?" he asked. He tilted his head, almost curious. "We're just getting started." They held me there for a few seconds like they were deciding what I was worth. Not panicked, not angry, measured. The two people gripping my arms didn't squeeze harder, didn't shout, didn't even look at me. Their masks were expressionless, one pale and smooth, one gold with a thin smile carved into it, and they kept their eyes on the man in red like he was the only person in the room who mattered. That was the first thing that made my skin crawl. The second was the way the room felt after the chanting stopped. It wasn't silence, it was expectation. Like I'd walked into the middle of something scheduled down to the minute. The man in red stood in front of me, his robe pooling across the black marble, and raised one gloved hand. The circle widened. The others stepped back in perfect sync, leaving a clear path to the altar. Then he looked at the box in my hands. "Bring it forward," he said. His voice was calm, almost bored, like he was asking for a file in a boardroom. I swallowed hard and held the package out with both hands. One of the black-robed figures took it carefully, too carefully. Not like cardboard, like evidence, like a relic. The man in red touched the label with one finger. "On time," he said. I almost said I was late. I almost said I'd been avoiding it all day. But something about the way he said it made my mouth go dry. In that room, "on time" didn't mean what time it was. It meant the ritual had reached the point where the box was supposed to appear, and I was part of the timing. The man in red turned to the circle. "Witness the final delivery," he said. The crowd answered in that same low, rehearsed tone. It rolled through the room like church liturgy filtered through a private club. Wealthy voices, educated voices, men and women who sounded like they belonged on television, in courtrooms, on stages, now hidden under masks, speaking in unison like one throat. A side door opened. Two robed attendants entered first, and between them came a woman in white, pregnant, barefoot, thin gown, one hand resting under her stomach like she was trying to support the weight of it. She wasn't dragged. That was the worst part. She walked slowly, obediently, eyes half open, pupils unfocused, like she'd been awake too long or drugged into a dream. Her lips were parted in a faint smile that didn't match her face. She looked peaceful in the way hospital patients sometimes do right before a procedure they didn't fully agree to. The room lowered their heads as she passed. Respect, reverence, not pity. I felt my stomach knot so hard I thought I might throw up right there on their floor. The attendants brought her to the center of the circle, just beside the altar. She swayed once and one of them steadied her elbow. As she lifted her head, her eyes moved across the room and landed on me. For 1 second, she looked awake, not fully, just enough. Her smile twitched, her mouth barely moved. "Don't," she whispered. The word was so soft I might have imagined it. Then her face went blank again. The man in red gave a small nod, and one of the attendants opened the package. The flaps came up slow, foam lining inside, layers of dark cloth wrapping whatever had been shipped. No retail box, no receipt, no branding. The attendant unfolded the cloth and lifted out a metal cup, not a trophy, not decorative, old-looking, heavy, dull silver or pewter, with dark stains caught in the engraved grooves. Around the rim, etched deep into the metal, was the same symbol I'd seen on the floor, a circle cut by a thin vertical line. The room made a sound then, a low hum of approval. The attendant reached back into the box and removed a folded card, thick cream paper, no letterhead. He handed it to the man in red. The man opened it and read aloud, "Special delivery, origin confirmed, for the chosen only, final step." He folded the card once and set it on the altar like he'd read those exact words before. My hands started shaking. I don't know if it was the wording or the way they all reacted to it, or the fact that origin confirmed sounded less like religion and more like a shipment chain, like customs, like logistics, like somebody somewhere had signed off on this and tracked it across borders. The man in red picked up a small glass vial from the altar. He poured its contents into the cup. The liquid was dark and thick enough to coat the metal as it ran, almost black in the candlelight. The circle began to murmur again. Same cadence, same tone, that polished prayer rhythm rising around us. The attendants guided the woman closer. She didn't resist. She didn't speak. She just stared through the room, one hand on her stomach, the other hanging limp at her side. The man in red raised the cup to her lips. "Receive," he said. She drank, slowly, like she'd been taught. The room exhaled as one. A ripple of satisfaction moved through the masks. Heads bowed, a few hands pressed to chests. It looked less like a sacrifice and more like a ceremony of inheritance, something old, hidden, and practiced by people who believed they had a right to decide what bloodlines mattered. The man in red lowered the cup and turned back to me. Even through the mask, I could feel him smiling. "Thank you, courier," he said. Not gratitude, a receipt. Two black-robed figures stepped to my sides again, gentle this time, professional. The man in red tilted his head and spoke the way a manager gives final instructions. "You may leave now. You will not repeat what you saw. You will not describe this house. You will not speak her name." He glanced at the woman. "If you do, the consequences will begin where you think you are safest." One of the figures took my right hand before I could pull it back. Something hot pressed into my thumb, a ring, a seal. I bit down hard to keep from yelling. When they let go, my thumb throbbed. The man in red stepped away, lifting the cup again as the circle reformed around the woman. The chanting returned, smoother than before, like I had never interrupted anything at all. And as they turned me toward the stairs, I looked back once. The woman was staring at me again, still smiling, but now there were tears running down both sides of her face. They walked me up the stairs like security escorting someone out of a private event. No rushing, no threats shouted, just steady hands on my arms and that chanting fading behind me the higher we climbed. By the time we reached the foyer, the city noise was back outside the door, like nothing had happened at all. One of the black-robed figures opened the door for me. "Get home safe," he said. His voice stopped me cold. It was normal, almost friendly. I turned, just for a second, and his hand lifted to his mask. He pulled it up enough for me to see a face I still see in my sleep. Pale, stretched in a grin too wide to be real. Lips pulled back like he was trying to smile with someone else's skin. Then the door shut. I never told my manager why I got back late. I drove the truck straight to the warehouse, parked it, turned in my scanner, and went home. The next morning, Dale told all of us that the Central Park route had been removed from our stops. No explanation, just gone. 6 years later, the news broke open. Files, names, flights, islands, mansions, everybody acting shocked. I read everything I could. Buried in one of those documents was a tiny line, barely a footnote, about a delivery driver bringing a package to a private residence. No name, no company, but I knew. They were talking about me. I stopped reading after that. Tonight, while I was writing this, someone knocked on my door. No one was there when I opened it. Just a box on the ground. And beside it, a mask. Gold, smooth, smiling. The same one from that room. If you enjoyed this story and want more like it, like, comment, and subscribe for more unseen horrors.